Hi, it's MJ Callaway and the Tiny Bounce Up Studio for another guest who is a contributor of the book 21. And think of it as WON 21 instead of the number 21. And today's guest is Gabrielle Smith Noye. She's a home stager with Abria. I hope I got that right. Did I get it right?
You did.
Abria Interiors. How fun. She's also the owner of an up-and-coming consulting firm that helps entrepreneurs create magnetic personal brands. She's also a magnetic mind coach and writer. Welcome, Gabby. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you, MJ. It's great to see you.
Awesome. So, and I know we've talked a little bit. We can either go Gabby or Gabrielle. So for the audience, if I switch between, she's the same person.
Yep.
So Gabrielle, the name of your chapter is called Failure to Launch.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes me think about the movie from a few years ago. But there's a certain key behind failure to launch that is the reason why you named your chapter it. So could you give us a little bit of insight?
Definitely, yes. It's definitely not because I live in my parents' house and I just can't, become an adult. My failure to launch has greatly been centered around my inability in the past to successfully launch and create a business for myself, which I knew a long time ago was what I wanted. And so I had a lot of false starts and things I dabbled in and tried that I still really love, but I feel like now they're more hobbies. And so, yeah, in the last year, I really decided to just finally go for it. And I love marketing and I love branding. And I love design. So these two businesses made much sense for me.
So I want to spin off of something that you had said. You said you found it, you still love them, but they're more of a hobby. Do you think sometimes entrepreneurs confuse business and hobby?
Well, if they're like me, they definitely did. And even though in my mind I knew the difference, it was easy to trick myself into thinking that this thing that I really wanted to do could be a business. And it still could be if I wanted it. But for me, I feel like there are some things really close to my heart that I don't want to try to build like a business because I'm too attached to them, right?
Right. So let's scoot back to 2020. Now, I know there was something you were doing that could not continue because, like many people, the pandemic. So could you share a little bit about what you were doing at the time when the world shut down?
Yeah, well, I am employed full time, so I have a job. And then in addition to that, I was a Woman Speak group facilitator. So I had a circle in Pittsburgh and we met in person because it's a wonderful curriculum and it functions best, in my opinion, in a real atmosphere. And when we could no longer do that, I felt like it was better to step down because the real value of that program, I didn't feel like I could deliver that virtually. And so I decided to just talk to my ladies and say, "Hey, I'm going to hang up this hat and I'm going to help you get into another group somewhere, but this isn't for me anymore."
Okay. And a lot of times we can't, or we don't take that step. We don't say no to something that isn't serving us. And kudos to you for doing that, for saying, no, this doesn't work anymore for me.
Mm, yeah.
So what did you do afterward?
Afterward, I used that time to do nothing for a little while, except, my job and just kind of see what I wanted to do. And I think that all my old passions and yearnings to grow a business were still there. And so I decided to keep pushing through with the home staging because I had begun that before 2020 in my training. So I decided to completely, finish that, launch that. And then I also, and honestly, I think my larger passion is marketing and branding. And I do consider staging a form of marketing because it is. So working with self-expression and leadership and women speak helped me decide that I really wanted to work with other entrepreneurs and really help them craft, what their personal brand is and a good way to get there. Because I would see a lot of people kind of floundering in that.
Before we go into that, was this like one day you woke up and you thought, this is what I need to do?
No, I call it a slow burn because it's like that little voice in your head that's like, you know what to do, you know what to do, and you just sometimes you just push it aside because
Sure.
it's not urgent. Um, but I feel like COVID for all of us kind of like pushed a lot of those feelings up where we wanted to really listen to and follow our heart more so because things seemed very grim, right?
Right, right. With now, you're combining a number of your talents together. And when you did work with it was Women Speak, did I get that correct?
It's woman speak, yes.
When you were working with that group, that organization, you noticed a couple of things that people lacked. Can you share that with us?
Yes, I can. One of the things that stood out to me most when people were trying to brand themselves and say, here's what my business is about, and here's what my mission's about, is that they lacked either confidence, which is really common. They also would lack a focus. So, they go down one path and then easily get derailed onto another. And then they would lack a sense of purpose, which is really hard because if you don't know why you're doing something, you're probably not going to keep doing it. And so for me, all of those things contribute to having kind of a poor structure in place in order to really launch and create a personal brand.
How important is it to have that structure? Like, what can you share with us about having that structure in place?
I think structure is everything. And when I say structure, I don't necessarily mean like a plan for your day, although
Mhm.
that could be part of it. But it's really like an orientation. Like, what are we focused on? Are we focused on what we want to accomplish, or are we focused on just problem solving our way through life? And so having the structure that really says, this is what I want to do. And then maybe you do bring in that daily planning and that daily routine to help you remember how important that creative structure is. So when I say structure, I mean it's a creative structure that's kind of pulling you to, in a magnetic way, what you want to be and do and have, versus a structure of just problem solving. Like I'm just orientated to the problem and I'm just overcoming problems and challenges, which if you do that, you may not make it to where you want to go.
And does that come down to looking a year out, 2 years out when you're talking about structure, especially when you're talking about branding?
Yeah, I think it is important to look at least a few years out and say, where do I want to be in a few years? What do I see myself doing? I think sometimes the trap people get caught up in is thinking that this goal has to happen in 1 year. And so if we put a limitation on our choices and our decision making, then it's not always helpful because sometimes you can accomplish things in a much faster way, right? Especially when you're super aligned and you have that
Right.
structure. So just being open-minded about it, I think.
Oh, absolutely. And we're always evolving.
Yeah.
And considering what's happening in our society, that also shapes us too. I mean, that gave you the push for that slow burn to
Mhm.
make a change.
Yeah, it really did. It really did. I mean, there were other things I started during COVID, like exercising that have fallen through the cracks, but I think this is around for the long haul. This is the next evolution of myself and embracing that's important.
And I love that evolution of yourself.
Yeah.
Good, yes, good phrase there. So, what is something that you would offer a tip to others?
Really look at embracing that creative structure and what are you orientated to? Are you keeping your eye on what you want to where you want to be? Or are you focused on the problems? Um, so that's one tip I would have. And getting to know yourself as best as you can.
Which is very important. It's surprising how many people don't get to know themselves. So,
Mhm.
is there one area when it comes to business, when it comes to women in business, that women tend to either shy away from or step back from, that they don't want to embrace? They don't want to jump in and embrace it.
Yes, I think about this a lot, because you can have like that perfect brand. You can do like a brand map and figure out your mission, your vision, and all your colors and how you're going to do all this stuff. But if you don't have a way to implement that, you will be, dead in the water. And so that's where technology comes in. And I don't consider myself a tech person, but I have had to embrace it for both my job and to run a business. And I think it's easier than we're making it out to be. Not that there aren't difficulties and challenges, but you have to pick that one thing that you're putting off and just get a short course on Udemy or find a YouTube channel that teaches you how to do it and just do it and
Mhm.
ask someone to help you, because I think the user experience is getting so much better and better as technology improves that most applications that we need to use to run a business are not difficult to use if you put in the time to learn it.
Absolutely agree with you there. We're using StreamYard, and a month ago, I didn't even know about StreamYard, and
Huh.
now using it on a daily basis. And there's so much information out there to teach us how to do what we need to do. So, right
Yeah.
on with that.
Yeah.
Now, what is maybe a tip or maybe a misstep or snafu that business owners can make when it comes to branding or marketing?
One of the things I've noticed, and I don't know that a lot of business owners do it, but maybe more so new business owners, is that when you talk about branding with them and you have that conversation, they tend to think that you're talking about their logo and their colors, which I get it. That is one aspect of branding. That's visual branding. But branding in the larger context of a business is really, what's your reputation? Like, what are you known for? And that comes down to even your operations, like the way you handle customer service. It's also, of course, your messaging and your copy. And it's really your practices and your values and what kind of promises you intend to keep. So I think giving people a more holistic definition of branding is helpful.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. That was great. Thank you. Because it does make sense.
Yeah.
So moving on, how can, because we're getting ready to wrap up here, how can others reach out to you? What is the best way for them to connect with you?
The best way you can connect with me is through Instagram, and you can find me at Gabby with one B, Y, Smith Noye, Noye. And don't reach out to me on Facebook through DM. That's one way not to contact me.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Okay, so you heard it. You want to contact with her on IG there. So, and we
definitely.
will also have some information about Gabby on our in card at the end of this video. Gabby, thank you so much for sharing some insights with our audience. Thank you so much for being such a delightful guest. I appreciate it.
Thank you, MJ. This was fun. I appreciate it.
Oh, I love when people say it's fun because then I know that I did my job.
You
So,
did
which is good
great.
because it's to make you comfortable so you feel comfortable sharing.
Definitely.
Um, all right, this is MJ Callaway signing out for this episode of 21. Remember, make it a bounce up day.